What's going on, guys? It's Noah Cahill. Welcome back to a brand new video. Hope you guys are having an amazing day or night. And today, I'm going to be telling you guys how the New York Knicks should build for the future if they really want to compete a few years from now. So no further ado, let's get right into the video. As first off, we're going to be breaking down the coaching staff of the New York Knicks. Of course, the New York Knicks, they have not had a stable coaching staff in such a long time. Of course, they hired David Fizdale a few years ago, and I thought he was the most overrated hiring in Knicks history. Of course, before that, you have Jeff Hornacek, you had Derek Fisher before that. You've not been able to have a stable head coaching position. You could say that due to the ownership not giving them a long chance and just like surrounding them with the right pieces. Like, it really depends who the GM is. Phil Jackson not really having the right pieces to complement each other's players and all that on the basketball team. But David Fizdale was extremely overrated. They said he was a defensive-minded coach, but he already had some of the most dominant defensive players and overall players in the NBA already established, such as Mike Conley, Marc Gasol, and such as Tony Allen as well, one of the greatest on-ball defenders in NBA history, in my opinion, and saying he could develop players. At the end of the day, when those guys are developed, he's defensive minded, but I just told you some of the greatest defensive players to ever play the game of basketball on both ends of the floor. And then also, he's a player's coach. Just because you're friends with LeBron and just because you're friends with D Wade doesn't mean you're a player's coach. And like all these Knicks players in interviews or just in general, they would always talk about how David Fizdale is such a nice guy. And they don't talk about how he's such a great coach, because you have to hold these players accountable. You got to be tough on them. If Kevin Knox continuously makes the same mistake, it's not okay to make the same mistake over and over again. You want to hold these players accountable, but you don't want to lower their confidence. And all he did was literally treat these players like puppies and just treat them just like so easily. And it's just like a newborn puppy dog, giving them so much attention but not holding them accountable. I don't really know that analogy. I sounded like Colin Coward right there. But of course, David Fizdale only won 17 games with the New York Knicks in his first season. Mike Miller took over, of course, the G League coach of the New York Knicks, and ended up leading them to a 17-27 record. That is still losing, but just the players on the roster that didn't really complement each other's games, and just the ability to not have that much floor spacing and still lead them to a 17-27 record is impressive. And there were still more games to go before this whole pandemic happened. With the rookie of R.J. Barrett, he started to play more efficient. Frank Ntilikina started to penetrate the basket more and move in and out of the pick and roll better, lobbing it up to Mitchell Robinson. Julius Randle continuously did his thing. Julius Randle always had that style of basketball. He had it with the Pelicans. He does that spin move right into a double team and turns the ball over. Just the big question mark with Mike Miller was he actually coaching his style of basketball, or was he being told by the front office to play these older players so then they win as much as possible to keep these fans happy? That was one of the big concerns I had. The player development. Kevin Knox, we drafted with the 9th overall pick back in 2018. He was absolutely horrendous. He was terrible this past season. And a bunch of Knicks fans said he had a good rookie year. I don't think he had a good rookie year. There was just nobody else on that squad to score the basketball. Who else was going to score the basketball? Emmanuel Mudiay? That was just not a good roster of guys whatsoever. He was extremely inefficient. Yes, you could say like a 31-point game, but he played so many minutes and he took so many shots because no one else is going to shoot the shots. But he's not been like a good, efficient, consistent basketball player. But again, he is still young. He's still a very raw prospect. I think he has talent for sure, but a lot of people don't like his motor. He lacks a motor. And it seems like every player that has come over has really had a big drop, like Dennis Smith Jr. But Dennis Smith Jr., I think, is kind of like a Kevin Knox at the point guard position. If you name Dennis Smith Jr., what is he good at besides his athleticism? He's not a good playmaker. He jumps on passes. He has an inconsistent jump shot. He sucks from the free throw line. He sucks on the defense side of the basketball. He's just not properly engaged consistently at all. And he hasn't really been a good basketball player. And in my opinion, the most impressive players have been R.J. Barrett and Mitchell Robinson. R.J. Barrett, I think, had a solid rookie year. I'll probably give it a B- to a B because he wasn't that efficient. He did get better from the free throw line throughout the season, but when he was under Mike Miller, they played a better brand of basketball and they started playing to their strengths a lot more. But like I said, going back to the front office, did they tell Mike Miller to just play these older type of veterans to try to get as much wins as possible? But we started to win games down the stretch more. We started to make more adjustments throughout halftime and just really look at the strengths and weaknesses of the team. And you would see him get engaged in the game and hold these players accountable. And in my opinion, it would be amazing to bring back a guy like Mike Miller, or even bring back A guy like Kenny Atkinson, most people don't know. A lot of Brooklyn Nets fans would probably laugh at this, but he was actually a coach of the Knicks before he was of the Nets. He was the assistant coach alongside Woodson. Or you could bring back a guy like Woodson, who was the last coach to bring the Knicks to the playoffs. But again, that was a talented squad with Amari Stoudemire, Carmelo Anthony, and some established veterans to help out those young guys, like of an Iman Shumpert. Then he had Kenny and Martin, who was a veteran over there. But yeah, I think it would be a good idea to bring back Mike Miller. Just what he would be able to do with a brand new draft, and just like being able to develop these guys. Like, I don't know if he's that developmental coach. He knows how to win, but does he know how to win with young guys? That's a big question mark. That's why I would bring in Kenny Atkinson, because that's been the big question mark, developing these guys and what he would be able to do, trying to bring out something. A Frank Ntilikina, Mitchell Robinson's already solidified himself as maybe a great six-man or maybe a future starter if he stays out of foul trouble. Getting something out of Kevin Knox. Dennis Smith Jr. maybe. Julius Randle may potentially be gone. But I'm really excited to see what Kenny Atkinson would do. I think the worst possible scenario would be getting Tom Thibodeau, in my opinion. As we're going to be moving over to the Knicks roster, take a look at the roster of guys. Most of these guys probably won't be back. RJ Barrett's obviously going to be back. If you break down the style of play of RJ Barrett, he has a very interesting style of play at 6'7". He can bully you around the basket. But the thing is, RJ, in my opinion, would have averaged like 20 points per game if it wasn't for Julius Randle having the keys to this offense. I did not like how they went out there and got tons of power forwards like Taj Gibson, Julius Randle, and all that. But the good thing about getting these power forwards is that they were on cheap deals, and they most likely won't be back. Now, like, we signed them to max contracts. Julius Randle, we gave a lot of money, but there are rumors we're going to trade him, which I think is a great idea because he takes the ball out of RJ's hand, and RJ is our future, and we got to make sure that he's involved in our future. And we get him out of his comfort zone, and he continues to learn as a basketball player. But he's a better playmaker than I thought coming in. His three-point shot got better like towards the end of the season. Like, he started to really show great flashes of what he could be in the far future. RJ Barrett's a great leader. He's built for New York. Like he said, I'm built for this on ESPN. I'm really looking forward to seeing what RJ could do. I think it's way too early to say if he could be a number one, number two option, or even a number three option. But RJ Barrett's definitely a part of this future, in my opinion. And I think he would be better at the small forward position than the shooting guard position. I believe he played small forward at Duke University. Moving on to Frank Ntilikina. Frank Ntilikina, of course, they drafted with the 8th overall pick back in 2017. Phil Jackson did. From France, of course. He was more that prototypical type of point guard. They wanted him to play in the triangle, of course. That's the thing with Jeff Hornacek. I think Jeff Hornacek would have been a more capable head coach if he didn't have to run that triangle system, of course. I like what he did in Phoenix with the point guards. But Frank Ntilikina, like, you can't look at his stats and see his progression throughout the season. Just his ability to look more comfortable on the basketball court. I think we should have drafted him later if we wanted to, but I don't think he would have been there, like, obviously in the second round or whatever. I still think he could have went in a different direction. Gosh, imagine if we drafted Donovan Mitchell. We'll never know. Frank Ntilikina, though, I think he'll be a solid backup at best. He doesn't really hurt the game at all. He plays with a high motor on the defense side of the basketball. His offensive game is still not there. But he showed flashes, of course, having that 20-point game against the Washington Wizards. But Frank Ntilikina is a big question mark because Kenny Atkinson, it would be exciting to see what he could do with Frank Ntilikina. Moving on to Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson was an absolute steal in the second round. This is what we've really been able to do nicely. Draft well in the second round. Damian Dotson been a nice bench piece. His ability to shoot the basketball off the bench, bring instant offense, bring some grit on the defense side of the basketball. Then you have a guy like Mitchell Robinson, who's an athletic freak. He's very long, could get stronger, but he might just have one of those physiques that, like, he really can't gain muscle. But I need Knicks fans to slow down. Just seeing him bust threes and, like, scrimmages against, like, his friends don't even look like NBA talent. And his handle, you could easily rip him. He's dribbling it so high and all that. I'm not even hating on Mitch Robinson. I'm a Knicks fan. But just because he's so-called working on his three-point shot when he's literally just messing around in a scrimmage, I could literally just be playing up against, like, a baby and busting a three-pointer in a baby's face. But does that mean I'm working on my three-point shot? No, it means I'm just messing around. He's not really in drills and stuff like that. But Mitchell Robinson's an athletic freak. Him in the pick and roll, alley-oop situations. If you could develop a mid-range jumper, that would be absolutely amazing. I think people need to slow on the three-point shot. If he doesn't even have a mid-range jumper, what makes you think he's going to have a three-point shot? But Mitchell Robinson does need to stay out of foul trouble if he wants to be the starter for the future. But I think RJ Barrett and Mitchell Robinson are really solidified for the future. Moving on to Julius Randle, there has been trade rumors, and I think this would be amazing. Please trade Julius Randle. Julius Randle, of course, scoring the basketball, but he's always on bad teams. Like, he'll most likely, if he's on a championship team, he'll be like a 6 man off the bench or off the bench type of guy. He can't be a number one or number two option. I just don't like his style of basketball whatsoever. He dribbles too long. He takes terrible shots. He like forces his way to the basket. You would see RJ wide open, or a guy like Frank, or just like anyone wide open, or even a Maurice Harkless, and still force it. It seems like he has a very selfish brand of basketball, and he spins right into a double team and turns it over. But I just hope they trade Julius Randle, because that's one of the number one guys you need to trade, and I think you can get some solid value out of him, especially if he goes to a playoff team. Moving on to Kevin Knox, I actually like this pick. In the 2018 draft, of course, Kevin Knox out of Kentucky. He was an efficient basketball player. He was really young. He had the nice tools, of course. He was a better defender in college, and it definitely didn't translate to the NBA. He's a long wingspan, has a smooth-looking shot for sure. His handle, of course, is iffy, but ever since he got to the NBA, he hasn't really been great at anything. His shot hasn't been falling. His ball handling ability is terrible. His on-ball defense, his help defense, he hasn't really been good at anything at all. Like I said, his ball handling, his playmaking ability, his ability to finish at the rim. Like, he's gotten stronger, but he still hasn't put it together. But to be fair, he still hasn't had his fair opportunity this past season. He did his rookie year, but that's a rookie year, so you can't really say much about that. But Kevin Knox has been a big disappointment. Like I said, if you bring in a guy like Kenny Atkinson to really develop him, I think that would be absolutely perfect for the New York Knicks. Dennis Smith Jr. Of course, he was really hyped at NC State, but I wasn't a big fan of him. Honestly, I think Frank Ntilikina is better than Dennis Smith Jr., like I said. He has really weaknesses at every spot on the floor, and I don't think Dennis Smith Jr. is a part of these long-term plans. I would literally have Frank Ntilikina as the starter of the future over Dennis Smith Jr. You could say we can't develop all you want, but he's kind of the same player with the Mavericks. He's just a very inefficient basketball player that's not really strong at any part in his game. He's a hitch in his jump shot. He has bad habits. He plays like a college player. He doesn't even play like an NBA player. But Dennis Smith Jr. has definitely been absolutely terrible. But again, it would definitely help if we have this developmental type of coach for sure, like Kenny Atkinson. Elfrid Payton, he's the type of guy that can run the offense. You give him the keys to the offense, he'll be a solid point guard. He struggles to shoot the basketball, but he's good at penetrating and kicking it down low and that type of thing. Good in the pick and roll, but he's definitely not a part of the future. Just a solid point guard that could be good off the bench. Maurice Harkless, maybe we hold on to him for the future as a nice bench piece, a good veteran type of piece for sure. Like, we have young players, and then it'll be nice to have like a veteran there, like a couple veterans or something to hang around. Maurice Harkless is still a productive, solid basketball player, not anything spectacular, but maybe it would be nice to like bring him back. Ignas Brazdeikis, not much to say. We didn't get to see what he did in the G League. Apparently, we didn't get to see what he could do at the actual NBA level. Apparently, there was reports that he was gonna like really play, but then the whole pandemic happened and all that. But liked him at Michigan. He's a scorer. We don't really know much about him. Taj Gibson was a productive player, but like some of these other veterans, he just doesn't fit the timeline. He would be a nice bench piece for like a championship team to really command the locker room, and he's never complained as a New York Knicks. He's a true professional. Alonzo Trier, one of the biggest fall-offs. Of course, I don't know what happened with him, Fizdale, Mike Miller. I could see why it's easy why they don't like a guy like Alonzo Trier, because he definitely stops the offense. He's a very ball-dominant type of player. He's not a good playmaker. He could score, though. That's the number one thing Alonzo Trier could do. I don't know if they don't like his attitude. They don't like his defense. He's undersized for his position. He may just be very ball-dominant and takes the ball out of other people's hands for sure. But I would definitely put him in like a late-game situation. Actually, I don't know if I would do that anymore because you have RJ. You want to see what he could do in those situations. But Alonzo Trier may be gone from the New York Knicks, and maybe he'll be nice on a playoff team for sure. But Alonzo Trier had a solid rookie year for sure. He's a very efficient basketball player. But Trier, interesting for sure. There's so many like players that have talent. They just have to be really be held accountable and like tough on these players type of thing. But that's what Kenny Atkinson is. Kenny Wooten, not much to say. He was a beast in the G League. Didn't see him at the NBA level. Bobby Portis, we absolutely have to trade or move on from. Talk about a ball stopper. He can score the basketball, but like I said, he'll be good on like a playoff team. Does not fit this timeline. Reggie Bullock, he played solid. I would not mind bringing him back. Nice little 3-and-D type of player. Wayne Ellington, wouldn't mind bringing back. Nice 3-and-D player. Kadeem Allen, of course, he was like on a 2-way contract. I believe he's a solid basketball player when he was in the game. Nothing really blows you off the charts. He just looks like a solid player that deserves to be in the NBA. And then Damian Dotson, one of my favorite players on the squad. that can really shoot it from beyond the arc. Good defensive player. You can't look at his stats and see what he brings to the game. There's a lot of players on the Knicks. You can't look at the stats and see what they bring to the game. You have to really watch the games. Like Frank Ntilikina, he could lock down the greatest player on the other team, for sure. But the roster, R.J. Barrett and Mitchell Robinson, in my opinion, are the only ones that are really sold to be a part of the future. Maybe guys like Reggie Bullock as well. But like I said, they went 17-27 under Mike Miller. I talked about how David Fizdale was an overrated coach, having one of the most productive point guards on both sides of the ball, Mike Conley, and Marc Gasol and Tony Allen, defensive-minded so-called coach with some of the most dominant defensive players already developed before he got there. Like I said, Fizdale won 17 games in his first season. And it was impressive with those types of guys for sure that I named off that he went 17-27 with, and he beat some good teams. He beat like the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat are a good basketball team, for sure. But the big question mark is the owner, of course, of James Dolan. James Dolan's one of the worst owners in sports. Like he's just the most stupid owner, and like in sports he is a human though, at the end of the day. But like he's one of the worst owners in sports, and he's one of the reasons we're bad. Like the coaching I think would be better, or we would have a stable coach if he just brought in the right GM to really surround the coach with the pieces he needs. But we've struggled to do that. But the owners have been a big X factor, just a big distraction. We don't need a distraction to this basketball team to really run away like another star player like R.J. Barrett if he develops into that in the far future. But we're going to definitely have cap space in the future, and we have draft picks from the Dallas Mavericks. They're not going to have like high picks, but if we can really nail those later picks, I think that would be amazing. Especially in this upcoming draft, of course. We're always good with the later picks, at least. Lately we have Mitchell Robinson and Damian Dotson. We'll see what Ignas Brazdeikis could do for sure. But yeah, we have, I believe, the 26th or is it the 28th pick of the LA Clippers. Like I was thinking, because we're projected to get the 6th overall pick, top 10 at worst. We could draft best player available there, because I think it's terrible to draft for fit in the lottery. Because you never know what's going to end up happening with other players on the roster, so you might as well get the best talent available. LaMelo Ball, James Wiseman, probably the best talent available. You could even throw a Denny Abdia in there, Anthony Edwards. Most likely we won't get one of those guys for sure, but of course it would be amazing. This is kind of a weaker draft, but if we can get top 5, I think that would be amazing. We're projected 6 overall. But yeah, we can go best talent available if we end up with like 6 overall pick, and then with that 28th pick, maybe we could draft like a player that we need to fit our roster, like a shooter, or maybe even a point guard. I like Desmond Bane for sure. He's a strong type of guy, can shoot the basketball, and I think he's a potential to be the Donovan Mitchell of this draft. Do I think he'll be as good as Donovan Mitchell? No, but I think he'll be a true point guard that will like make an impact right away. And the Knicks' struggles have always been developing players, and like notice how Damian Dotson has made an impact right away because we didn't have to develop him because he played a couple of years in college. It's always been the problem with the young guys because we haven't been able to develop them. But if you bring in a guy that's already established and ready for the NBA and his experience stuff, I think that would be amazing. Of course, there's always something you could develop out of a player, but Desmond Bane, I think, is NBA ready for sure. Doesn't have a high upside, but like he can make an impact right away. A lot of people said Donovan Mitchell doesn't have a high upside, but who cares if they make a great impact right away and they help that team win basketball games, for sure. But we have to build this team within the draft. We're not going to get anyone in free agency as long as we have James Dolan and we haven't proven a winning culture. So Knicks fans, sorry, we're not getting Giannis Antetokounmpo in like 2021. I never thought Kevin Durant was a possibility. Kyrie Irving, maybe I did sometimes because there was like a big rumor that came out, of course. But then, of course, when KD got hurt, it kind of went downhill. But because the Knicks just don't have a good run organization, we haven't been good in a very long time. So who wants to come here, especially with the owner we have, of the bad rumors coming out, or just the bad news coming out of James Dolan, and all that, and just not having a winning culture. But we have to build from the draft because we're not getting a big star. Maybe we can like bring in a guy that's like a shooter from free agency or something that could really fit our team. But we have to nail our draft picks. We need to draft right. We can't afford to draft bust. We need to draft guys that can make an impact right away down the road and just really be great in the long term. We have potential to get our point guard of the future of a Cole Anthony, Killian Hayes, Tyrese Halliburton. LaMelo Ball would be the biggest upside, of course. Hopefully we could draft LaMelo Ball. I think he's either going to be really good or he's going to bust. But we need to draft a player that complements RJ's game. RJ needs the ball in his hands to succeed. I think he can move without the basketball, but he's not a guy that's going to spot up and just splash a 3 type of thing. But you need to get a guy that could complement his game. I think Tyrese Halliburton, LaMelo Ball, and Killian Hayes are those types of guys. Cole Anthony, would be the worst possible fit. That's who I would not want whatsoever. Heard Leon Rose is interested in him. I think it's only because Greg Anthony, of course, is his father who played for the New York Knicks. But the New York Knicks are in a weird position for sure in the draft. Watch it be the first time they get the first overall pick when it's not even that great of a draft. But I would definitely draft LaMelo with the first overall pick. But of course, there comes with the extra baggage. But LaVar has been quiet recently, which is amazing for Lonzo and all that. And I think it's especially because he's in a smaller market. So he's like, what's the point of like really supporting Big Baller Brand or putting it out there if she's playing in New Orleans? But Cole Anthony, he's a very inefficient basketball player. He's kind of undersized. I kind of like a taller type of point guard. Not a great playmaker. When he's penetrating, he penetrates on like three guys, pause, when he goes up to the basket, and then you would see someone wide open in the corner and you wouldn't recognize it. Shot selection is terrible. Like, he has good ball handling ability, but he's just not really ready for the NBA. He's not an efficient player, and he doesn't play the point guard position the right way. It would definitely stunt RJ's development, and I think that would be a terrible pick. Of course, we brought in a new GM/president, president, I believe, of Leon Rose alongside of Scott Perry. Leon Rose might be trying to bring in a guy like Chris Paul to bring in a winning culture, but I would not bring in Chris Paul because it's going to be one of those situations like when we traded for Melo, or like when we traded for Melo when we could have got him the next year in free agency and he wanted to come here. And that could have been like a situation. We got him for cap space and didn't have to trade away our young guys like Danilo Gallinari, and all that, who ended up being a solid player. It sucks he got hurt and all that, but Leon Rose might want to bring a guy like Chris Paul to help out next upcoming young point guard. But I don't want to give up a lot just for an older Chris Paul we might have for like a year or two, and then we'll be in mediocrity for a couple of years. But they have to draft right, and that's my thoughts on the New York Knicks. They have to put together the right coaching staff to develop young players. You have to build throughout the draft. You have to draft right and just find stability at the coaching position. Hopefully RJ Barrett and Mitch Robinson is the future. Has to stay out of foul trouble. Mitch Robinson and RJ has to continue to improve. But thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, guys, have a humble day or night. Peace out, y'all.